of the common issues reported by owners of the Chevy Uplander and equivalent models such as the Pontiac Montana or the Buick Terraza is that the sliding doors often have issues. And they can have a variety of issues, like coming open when you're driving down the road. Sometimes they'll beep constantly, indicating that the door is open even when it's closed and latched properly. Or sometimes they just have trouble opening and closing when you press the button. And I've had a lot of those problems, and what I've wanted to do is simply disable the automatic doors entirely. Make them and so they slide easily and can be used just as manual doors. And it took me quite a while to gather the information on how to do this, so I thought I would share it with you today. Now, I'm performing these steps on a 2007 Buick Terraza, but it should also work with those other two models and probably with other years as well, but the steps specifically will work on the 2007 Buick Terraza. Not only am I going to show you how to disable the automatic doors, but I'm also going to show you how to disconnect them from the motor. That way they slide back and forth very easily. Now, this van does have buttons that you can use to put the doors into manual mode, and you might wonder why I just don't do that. But there's two problems with using that method. Doing that doesn't disable the sensor that detects whether the door is closed properly or not. And unfortunately, one of the problems with these vans is that that sensor doesn't work correctly. Even when the door is closed and latched, you'll be driving down the road and then this constant beeping starts because it thinks the door isn't closed. The other problem with using these buttons is that even though the door is disabled and in manual mode, it slides hard because it's still connected to the motor. So I'm going to show you how to disconnect it from the motor so the door will slide easily. Now, the first thing you need to do is take out a fuse, and this is in the passenger side. You just pull off this panel, and there's actually 3 fuses that have to do with the power sliding doors. Okay, these 2 on the bottom are for the left and right sliding doors, and then there's also one up here that's marked just PSD or power sliding door. And that's the one you need to take out. You can take out these as well, but specifically if you take that one out, that'll disable the doors, and it will also disable that sensor that beeps at you if it thinks the door is not closed. Let's go ahead and take that out of there, and that's all we have to do here for now, so I'll go ahead and put this panel back on. Now, just by pulling that fuse, these doors are now essentially manual, but they still slide pretty hard. Especially a young person will have a lot of trouble opening and closing this door. So what I'm going to do now is disconnect it from the motor. That way it'll open and close very easily. Now, the first thing we're going to do is take off this piece of trim on the back. So to do that, we first need to take off the tail light. There's 2 screws here, and they use this rather odd star-shaped head. Once we take these 2 out, we should be able to take the tail light off. Just going to let the tail light hang here. Now we have to take out a screw that's right here, which will allow the back of this trim to come loose. Now you can see that I've slid the door open, and there's a little pin here that attaches the door to this piece, which essentially attaches it to the vehicle. I'm going to get that pin out of there so I can put the door aside and get it out of the way. Now, there's a little ring down here you have to use a screwdriver to pop off, then you just tap it to get it to come out. You do have to tap this pretty hard, so you do want to be careful that you don't scratch the van in the process. Once I get the pin loosened, I should be able to lift up on the door and pull it the rest of the way out. Now I can just set the door down, and you need to have a bucket close by so you can set it on the bucket because it can't go all the way to the ground. Now that you have the door detached, take this thing and pull it to the back, and then pull the trim out a little bit, and you can fold this right out of here, like that. Now what you want to do is detach these 2 cables. That way the door doesn't pull against the motor when you open and close it. So you need to detach these cables, but to do that a whole lot easier, what you can do is remove the cable from the pulley back here. You take the pulley cover off. It'll already be loose because you already have that screw out. Then you can take the cable off the pulley, and that gives you a whole lot more cable to play with. Now you can just pull that right out of there, comes loose. Pull out the other side, then we can put this back in to hang the door back on. Now you're going to have some extra cable here, so what you do with that, just push it back in this hole, and you'll probably be able to get most of it back in there. And if you have any extra, you can just double it around up in here, someplace where it won't bother the door or the tail light, and you can just leave it there. Now the only thing I have to do is put everything back together, and we'll be good to go. And with that, the door is now completely manual. Slides shut very easily, and your days of fighting with a poorly designed electronic sliding door are over.